Hey, Corey, we're live. I'm waiting on Matt here. I think he's getting connected. Okay, Corey, let's just jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking about CreditCon 2022. We're going to be talking about our speech at CreditCon, specifically regarding compliance, TSR, CROA. We're not going to go into full detail, but we are going to kind of highlight some of the topics that we're going to be discussing at CreditCon 2022 in Vegas. Here we go. We got Matt back. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Matt, we're just introducing the show topic today. Obviously, CreditCon 2022, TSR presentation. It's not just TSR. It's pretty much anything compliance that's kind of a pressing issue these days. Matt, we're going to jump in unless you got anything off the top.
Go for it.
All right. So first of all, like last year when we gave a speech about this stuff, it can get, I don't know, a little emotional because, you know, this stuff is serious. It can affect people's lives. So there's a little emotions going on, and there's also disagreement. At the end of the day, the whole purpose of the speech is really to grab a bunch of research that we've conducted and then hand it to you. And then that way you guys can do whatever you want with it. We just hope that we do good things for the industry, for each other, that we help each other with this stuff. If you have questions, bring them. We'll try to go get answers. If you have answers, bring them so we can share them. So that's the goal. The goal is not to be, you know, waving a finger, you should do this, blah, blah, blah. It's, hey, this is the stuff we're finding out, and we want to bring it to your attention. I will tell you that we're not going to tell you here, but Corey and I and some of the attorneys have found some really, really interesting things, and we've had a realization about the regulatory environment, about the regulators. And we have an interesting perspective that we're going to bring to you at CreditCon about the regulators specifically. Yes, some of them, you know, might not like this industry, but others are just doing their job, and maybe there's ways we can make it easy on them. Okay, so a couple other quick topics. We're going to talk about the history of some of these laws, the CROA, the TSR. Why did they come about? How did they come about? You know, what was involved in promulgating these rules and passing these bills? Matt, and you seem to like that section a lot last year where we went through the chronology of it. I think it's kind of helpful.
I think it's extremely helpful to understand the background. I mean, like, if you want to understand anything, you really have to think about how this came about, how this developed, what was their intention in making this, what were they thinking, and why is it being enforced now and it wasn't enforced 20 years ago. The history really makes this all digestible and much more understandable.
For sure. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Intention. Intention is really important because you get kind of lost in the legal weeds and what does this word mean? What does that word mean? If you just go back and find out what they were trying to cure, what they were trying to address, and how they decided to do it, it makes understanding these very complicated laws very easy. So it's really cool to have kind of a chronology and a history leading up to it. So in addition to the history, we're going to dive into what some of these laws say, right? You know, what does the CROA say specifically? Corey, if you want to chime in real quick, I mean, we have some pretty experienced credit repair companies that admit to us that they've never read the CROA. Do you want to give a couple quick examples, Corey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you start to read into specific laws, it can make your eyes cross. And the thing that we found with the CROA, though, is when you boil it down to just the Credit Repair Organizations Act, it's really not that intimidating. And I think a lot of people, they start it and it's like, forget it. But you know, and reach out if you want. I have a really good link that's just the CROA. So I always tell everybody it'd take you about 15 minutes to read through the whole thing. And it's a good thing to do on a regular basis. Always read through it just to make sure it's top of mind. So yeah, absolutely. But we do talk to quite a few credit repair companies, more that haven't read it than who have actually read it. So definitely check it out. But we'll talk about that at CreditCon as well.
Yep. In addition to CROA, we'll talk about the TSR, pretty in depth about the TSR, some of the substantial assistance stuff. We're also going to talk about state laws because there's quite a bit of topics raging in state law compliance right now. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. In addition to the history of the laws and rules, what the rules and laws say, we're going to be talking about cases that are going on. I'm going to go pretty thorough, by the way, because we have a good portion of the industry that, you know, says, well, it's just big companies or this or that. We're going to go through every single case, and you guys, you'll really see like, oh, this has been going on since 1996, and they've been hitting us nonstop since 1996. Maybe a few gaps, but there's cases all over the place that people don't talk about. I've seen cases as little as a $20,000 judgment. So this isn't just Lexington laws or whatever. They're not just going after the big boys. They definitely go after everybody. And, there might be some reasons why, and we should talk about that. Maybe we can avoid some of those things. In addition to old and new cases, we're going to be talking about unpublished cases that maybe you don't even see. Maybe they're going on in the background. Maybe we have some information on it, and we will share some of that stuff. Matt Listro has come in 3 different times. I'm going to see if I can get him. Hold on one second. Here we go. Let's try this.
Up, like went weekend at Bernie's on us.
Matt, where's Matt here? I'm going to add both of these. I think Matt is having internet trouble. He said he'll be back in a minute, so I will just remove that and remove that. I'll wait till I see him moving down there. He looks frozen. Okay. There are some unpublished things. So, for example, I'll give you a sneak peek on one right now. I wonder. Let's just say certain regulations, regulatory agencies are using CIDs pretty heavily, and they're going after industries that you probably expect if you thought about it. But maybe there's some evidence for it. Maybe I'll show you some of the stuff that they're actually doing, potentially having to do with moving money around and talking to processors and asking for cooperation with processors that work with credit repair companies. So we might share some of that stuff as well. Corey, you have anything on that?
No, that's good.
Okay. So there's something we're going to also talk about, unfairness analysis. It's kind of like a wonky, nerdy thing, but like if you dig into unfairness analysis and really look at what it means, how the FTC interprets it, it actually acts as like a key to understanding some of this stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about unfairness analysis. It took 100 years for them to kind of settle on what they agree is unfair and whatnot, and the rules that apply to determine whether something's unfair. And I think it's extremely important that we understand this stuff, because I will tell you, they've had a declaration. They literally wrote it out. They said credit repair advanced payments are unfair, period, under the FTC Act. So that's outside of CROA. That's outside of TSR. That's FTC Act. They've made a declaration that advanced fees in credit repair is unfair. No one really knows about that stuff, and we're going to put it on the screen and show you. Matt is back, but I'll wait till he gets set up. Okay, so clearly, when people are faced with regulations or rules and whatnot, the instant reaction is to try to avoid that stuff and try to sneak around it. We're going to talk about the difference between loopholes and like really silly kind of arguments that don't really save the day, and then compliance and avoidance, which is, you don't want to get a speeding ticket, don't drive a car. That's avoidance. It's not a loophole. You're just not doing it. If you don't want to be a telemarketer subject to TSR, don't use a phone. It's really that simple. So we'll talk about some of those type things and see if we can, I'm going to see if I can add Matt back here. Are you back?
Awesome.
Hola. Welcome back.
My phone connection at least.
All right. Well, you look good there. We're just left off at loopholes versus compliance and avoidance. And then we're also going to talk about how to avoid being targeted in the first place. And this is a big question that people ask, what triggers an investigation? There's quite a few things. We might talk about Consumer Sentinel Network that the FTC uses. We might talk about fake reviews or fake complaints and real complaints that could trigger investigations. Maybe just some really obvious illegal behavior that could trigger an investigation. So we'll go through some of that stuff as well. With that said, though, we're going to talk about something really interesting. There's whistleblowers in our industry right now, and you need to be very, very careful. And there's also, maybe we'll talk about it in more detail, maybe like happy attorneys to sue credit repair companies that are violating these rules. So you need to be very careful. It's not very friendly, but it is occurring, unfortunately. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Okay, so one thing I do want to bring up, if you guys have questions or if you want anything addressed specifically, we have, 8-9 days here. We can put something together. So if you have topics, questions, anything like that, shoot it to us. Corey, I'll just do a new banner real quick. Let's do Corey at CredZoo. I'll put that up. So you can send that there if you want to send it over to Corey. Send any kind of questions or concerns, anything you want discussed during CreditCon, and we can probably work it in. I think Matt just left, and we're going to pull him back. Hey, Matt, talk to us about how to attend, where to go, how can we come to CreditCon 2022? Where is it, etc.?
Yeah. Also, for those questions, if you're coming to the event, you can also log into the mobile app. And I know we've got some Q&A questions lined up for that session. You could just go to that session now and post your question for it to be answered during the event, and that would be very helpful. I think there's some discussion boards up there about TSR as well. So either of those two things are pretty good. Hey, Robbie, you want to switch over to the other one? Yeah, there we go. Woohoo! All right. Modern technology is only good when it's working. So anyway, let me put that on down. There, you won't get an echo. Okay, so coming to the event, you can attend physically or virtually. So if you still can make arrangements to get a flight, or if you're close enough by, you can drive it. Come on by and come to the event physically. It's a great event to come to physically. The people that are there, the network you can do is absolutely fabulous. You could just come physically. But when you buy your ticket, the very first question on the checkout page is, are you coming in person or are you attending virtually? You can also buy a ticket and watch from home. And so that is certainly an option. We prefer you to come physically. I would love to see you there in person. It is obviously a much better event in person because the networking and the in-person experience, but certainly second to that, come and watch. So you can still buy a ticket. You can go to the website www.credit-con.com and you can use the code CredZoo150, save $150 on your ticket. We would love to have you come to the event, whether it's physical or virtual. If you have already bought your ticket, you probably have that email that we've been sending out for the past few days about downloading the mobile app. Please go do it. We do recommend allowing notifications from the app, at least for the next couple of weeks, so we can text you about the event when things are going on at the event. You'll know when we're gathering to go to the club or when we're meeting at the piano bar, and when the comedy club event is over and people are heading to the nightclub, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Matt, I'll tell you, we downloaded the app before CreditCon last year. And we're like, oh, what is this? Another Facebook, another thing. And I'll tell you, like, we could meet people, we could engage with them. When we walked there, it was like, instead of like a tentative handshake, we're hugging people. It really helps to, connect people. It's really, really helpful and really powerful. Plus all the communication, you get to ask questions of speakers. You can just get directly to them. I highly, highly encourage you to download the app. It's very, very helpful for the
You can actually, within the app, it'll have mini Zoom rooms. It's not actually Zoom, but it's a proprietary meeting technology, whatever. But you can have up to 30 people. You can schedule a meeting with people and have up to 30 people in like a mini video session, which is really kind of fun. Send messages back and forth to people, look through the attendees. Oh, there's so-and-so. I want to meet them. We've got some really interesting people coming to the event, and so you can make some really good connections there. It's download that mobile app, start going through it. I think we have a little over 300 people in the app right now. We're expecting about 350. So get in there, start networking, looking through, and see who's going to be there.
Matt, I'm gonna throw you on the spot here. What kind of questions do you have? TSR, CROA, FTC Act. What would you want in the presentation?
Man, some of the things I wanted, the questions that even the TSR, CFPB won't answer. One of the things I want to mention briefly during the program is, I had a call with the CFPB's TSR specialist attorney who was calling to answer questions to the extent that they could on the TSR. And there was a lot of stuff he wouldn't answer. And those are really the things I want to answer. But the issue there is they really don't have an answer for some of these things. Like how do you compliantly get a credit report 6 months later? Nobody has ever had an answer to that. I want to know if I get a referral. There appears that there may be an exemption for that under TSR, but then when does the plan, program, or campaign aspect re-trigger TSR even for a referral? We could talk more about that. That's something that the CFPB attorney had no comment on either, no position on either. So anyway, yeah.
How many questions were submitted in total? Was it like insane, like 28 or 38 questions?
28 questions we submitted to them. Very few actually had hardcore answers. So which is disappointing. a lot of it was a pushback on that should really be answered by the FTC. That should really be answered by the FTC. And so, truth be told, I've been a little busy recently, but after the convention, I'm going to try and pick that up and try and pursue some more answers with the FTC and see how far we can get with this to keep pushing the envelope on compliance to figure out what exactly do they consider to be compliant and what isn't, so we can get some good guidance on it.
Timothy Williams talks about how escrow can hurt or help. Escrow.
I don't think anybody would say escrow would hurt.
No, for sure.
Yeah, escrow is only gonna help your case in saying that, hey, you're using escrowing the funds for consumers. It gives one more level of security for the consumer. That there's one more prevention in there for the consumer to help them. So I don't think anybody would ever argue that escrow is going to hurt. The question, of course, is will escrow help? Will escrow negate the TSR, or how much will it negate the TSR? And Robbie, I'll let you tackle that one.
I would say it will not negate the TSR. There's two answers. So the first answer is if you go like bottom where all like the weeds are, really complicated stuff, and then you move up to like generalized concepts, and then you move up to like overall concepts like CROA, and then you move up even further to where it came from. The issue is unfairness, and the root of all of those laws and rules is unfairness, and they've declared advance fees unfair. Escrow reverses that because it's impossible to declare money held in escrow as an unfair taking from a consumer. It's impossible. So it pulls like the root of the problem away. Now, that doesn't do anything for the TSR to the extent you're a telemarketer on the phone engaged in telemarketing, and then you put money in escrow and then take it out before 6 months. You're violating the TSR, period, whether you use escrow or not. So escrow is great for CROA. Escrow is great for state laws. Escrow is great for FTC Act. Escrow cannot solve the problem of the 6 month wait. So it can help in a lot of regards, but it can't help in one very specific regard, which is the 6 month wait.
Okay, good stuff. We got to talk a lot about this stuff at the convention.
Yeah. The regulators won't discuss practical model applications. They will discuss the actual law, their positional laws. Yeah. The laws enforcement are asking how to comply. They'll say this. Yeah. It's true. So this person is saying, and sorry, I don't know who this is, so I apologize, but this person is saying the regulators won't really answer questions. Someone else, I'll put a comment.
They answered a few for me. I mean, of those 28 we submitted, we got down to bare bones on a few of them. But generally speaking, they're not, and they're gonna say we don't take a position on that, and that's a very difficult thing to hear because I need to know what your position is so we can set up a compliant company. It's very difficult when they'll say they won't take a position on something.
So there's a couple ways to do it. You can submit official request to the FTC. So first of all, the CFPB doesn't have interpretive authority over the TSR. So to some degree, they're kind of they can't answer questions. They don't even have like the legal authority to answer the questions unless there's already been a determination.
Submitting those 28 questions to the CFPB is that I really should have gone direct to the FTC because the CFPB used the out many times over. This is an FTC regulation. We can only interpret. You should ask them for interpretation guidance, not us. It's not our regulation. We're only enforcement.
That's right.
And to that, I want to say, well, how would you enforce it then? You know, Really, if I could go back in time, it took the CFPB 4 months to get back to me on those 28 questions. That was a whole lot of wasted time right there.
When you submit it officially through the correct channels to the FTC, they actually have an obligation to answer you. They can't answer hypothetical questions and things like that, but they actually have a legal obligation to answer questions. And then, of course, if they don't, you can always pull an AXO and file a declaratory
action. Yeah,
and they'll have to come into the case and answer. So, or a judge will answer. So it's not easy getting answers, and sometimes, but we'll keep working on it. 6 months is 6 months. Escrow is just an instrument. That's exactly correct. The escrow will not change the timeline. If you use escrow and you're a telemarketer, 6 months, it's not even 6 months. It's credit repair, which could take 6 months, 6 months of a wait period, get a credit report, which you may or may not be able to do. And then you can take the money. Whether it's in escrow or not is totally irrelevant. it'd probably be a good business practice to put the money in escrow so that it's sitting there. And then once the title to the money changes from the consumer to the company inside of escrow, it's locked in. Client can't take it back. But it doesn't change the 6-month rule. Yes. If you don't use unlawful marketing, can you then collect monthly payments? That's going to be addressed, Tim. Great question. The quick answer is the FTC says no and a court says yes. So you're going to have to pick. But there's some more depth to that. The FTC was not involved in the case where the judge said no. Yes. And the FTC has a lot of deference. Whatever they say kind of goes. There's a thing called the Chevron doctrine, and unless they're unreasonable or what they're saying is illegal or whatever, judges are usually going to go with the FTC.
You talking about that Heath case from like a decade ago where the judge ruled that monthly payments were perfectly acceptable. Yeah.
Yep. There's a FTC guidance letter in 2008, and then there's the Heath case in 2010. They say the opposite thing. So I would say, like, if I was a lawyer, but I'm not advising anybody, but if I was a lawyer, I'd be like, the judge says it, and then, it's a great defense. But at the same time, the FTC has made their point abundantly clear in a 5-page guidance letter on this specific topic. And they say no, monthly fees are not permitted.
And when was that guidance letter?
2008. I can get you a link.
It predates the court case. Interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at that Heath case in forever. Did they actually, well, no, Heath, they didn't bring up the TSR in the Heath case at all. That was strictly,
Nope. But they explicitly said monthly fees are okay in that case. And they strongly said it too. They were like an argument to the contrary is ridiculous. Like they strongly said it. But on the other hand, the FTC strongly said that they're not. So yeah. So I appreciate the comments. If anyone has anything else, we'll answer those comments. If not, we're going to see you guys at CreditCon. It's going to be very exciting.
I'm really looking forward to this presentation. I mean, it's a conversation that needs to happen. I don't want to hear it any more than you guys do. But I want to be aware of the situation and understand the different points of view. And that is one thing we're really committed to bringing to the convention is the different points of view. Let's go ahead and look at it from the regulator perspective. This is why they're trying to do. This is what we're trying to do. Here's an argument as to why a referral could be exempt. And here's an argument as to why a referral can't be exempt. And we're going to try and put forth both arguments so you can hear both sides and start to formulate your own opinion. Listen, we all want to, and I do this sometimes, I want it to be this, and so I'm going to try and justify that and make that fit my needs. I want referrals to be exempt, so I'm going to try and justify why referrals should be exempt. So that's my mindset. But I need to make sure I listen to the argument for why a referral may not be exempt and listen to it and try and take that in and digest it to see if that changes my mind. You need to hear all sides, and we're really going to try and do a good job of presenting all sides of the argument for this so you can make your own determinations.
For sure.
So,
when is it? Where is it? How do we get tickets?
www.credit-con.com. You'll see the event is it's a Monday, Tuesday, half a Wednesday pattern. So it's April 11th, 12th, and 13th at Paris Casino in Vegas. If you miss this one, you'll have to wait till next year. 2023 is on the books. It'll be the very end of April in 2023. I think it's April 24th, 25th, and 26th. It'll be in New Orleans. So we'll have a different location, a little bit different in 2023. Tim saying he can't make it this year. And get everyone to sign a petition to send to Congress concerning the TSR. Yeah, I'm not sure that, Tim, that's a great idea. Listen, I'm all for trying everything. So I don't want to squash any idea. But to that end, if you recall, 4 very important congressmen sent a letter to the CFPB instructing them to, I'm going to paraphrase here, but knock it off about the TSR enforcement. And they ignored the 4 very important congressmen. So to that end,
they didn't ignore Matt. They responded and said, no, thanks. We're going to go ahead and continue.
Yeah. I didn't even see that response, but it had no effect. So I'm not sure Congress, unless we get Congress to change the actual, well, I guess you can't get Congress to change the regulation because it's a regulation. It's not actually a law.
You can't change the regulation. You could, you could change the law that gave them the ability to promulgate the rule. Also, Congress could direct them to change the rule, but
yeah, that would
likelihood
be
is pretty slow.
Yeah, that would be where it's at, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I know that when NACSA was in Congress, I understood, this is secondhand, but I understood some of the feedback from the congressmen were that they, because it was in the court system, they were less apt to try and do anything until the court ruled upon it. And I know that one of the things they're referring to is that Lexington case progression, which I understand from speaking to them that will be adjudicated this year. So we may well have a lot more things to talk about in the second half of this year, as that court case sets some precedent. So very anxious to see how that goes.
Very good. All right. Well, Matt, I appreciate you joining us. Corey, do you have any final thoughts?
No. If you are coming to CreditCon, KredZoo's going to have a booth. Please stop by and just hang out, say hi. We would just love to meet you. We love meeting people, talking about your business. Again, we're not the kind of people to put you in a headlock and tell you to do something. We're just, we want to be involved. So come and talk, say hi, and we look forward to seeing you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Nice. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you.